How's it going, everybody? Today I got a game review for you, and I'm going to be reviewing Dead Space 3. Before we begin, I just want to clarify that I will be reviewing this single player only, as I've not had a chance to play co-op. So it'll just be from the single player side of things. Alright, what I'm going to be doing is, first off, I'm going to be going through the cons, and then I'm going to go through the pros. That way it's sort of like bad news, the good news, yeah. So a lot of people thought that Dead Space 3 was not as scary as the other ones, and yeah, I'd have to agree that it was just not as I mean, there was still good suspense. I felt there was still a good amount of suspense, but the amount of actual horror was not on par to the second one, and certainly not to the first, which the first was most undoubtedly the scariest of the franchise. For a lot of people, this sort of lack of horror kind of ruined the game a bit. It didn't as much for me. It wasn't as big a deal for me, but it's still a factor to consider when you think this is the third game of the franchise. This is the end, this is the grand finale, and it kind of has to live up to the first two, and it just kind of fell short on the horror aspect. Another con was that it just sort of lacked a lot of those memorable moments that the first two had. Like, in the first game, you had those really, really sort of eerie, creepy moments, like when you come across this guy that's just sort of banging his head against the wall, or like the eye poke moment in the second one. It just sort of lacked those big moments in the game. The last sort of con, I guess, that I have with the game is the fact that in some parts you really feel overwhelmed with the amount of enemies, and it just gets to be more of a hassle. And it sort of detracts from the fun a bit. It is still fun as hell to play, though. I mean, despite the lack of horror elements, it is still the Dead Space that we know and love. And because this is the last of the trilogy that they made, it does wrap up everything really nicely. It brings closure to the series. I won't spoil anything, but other than the fact of the post credits little snip, it does just sort of finish things off really well. The campaign itself, I have no idea how long it would take with a co-op partner. I'm assuming it might go a bit faster that way, but the campaign is a really good length. It took me around 13 hours my first playthrough, so I mean, there's a good amount to be had here. Its length is partly due to the fact that they added optional missions, which I thought was pretty cool. These optional missions are obviously, you come across these little bits where you don't have to do them; they're optional. But if you do, you get rewarded with a lot of resources and some cool weapon parts. Which brings me to my next point, which is the fact that the weapon crafting system is probably the best weapon crafting system in any game that I've played. I mean, it's just fantastic. You can literally make just about anything that you can think of. I mean, you can attach a flamethrower to a plasma cutter. You could attach a ripper to a force gun. You could do anything that you really want with it. And on top of that, it comes with a bunch of extra attachments and circuits to just sort of pump up your gun just a little bit more. And it's really, really good. It's really in-depth, and I thought they did an amazing job with that. And on top of all this, the game just looks great. I mean, it's so just wonderfully detailed. I mean, the environments are gorgeous. Floating through space is gorgeous. Everything is done so well, even down to small details like bits of snow that sort of accumulate on your suit, and just little things like that. I mean, they did a really great job making you feel like you're in this environment. So overall, I mean, even if you weigh in the cons that I mentioned, it's still a fantastic game. If you like the series, definitely go play it. Actually, they're releasing a DLC, I think, today. So if you want to get that too, go for it. I mean, this is still Dead Space. This is still something that's really fun if you like Dead Space. And don't listen to all those people that are like, oh, it's not as scary, so it's not as fun. And even to tie into my first video about microtransactions, apparently EA tossed some microtransactions into this game, and for the people out there that are saying, oh, it ruined the game for me, I have this to say. I don't know what you're talking about. I played offline, so I didn't come across anything that was like, hey, buy stuff. So, to those of you who thought it ruined the game, don't know what you're talking about. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it a good solid 8 out of 10. I mean, this is a great game. If you like Dead Space, definitely go get it. It's well worth your time. That's all I got for today. See you guys next time. Dead Space 3. That was terrible. I just covered up my face when I did that.